Hello, everyone, and welcome to the newly christened Epic Fail blog. That's right, I stopped calling it The World According to Steve because not only has everybody, on my friends list, not only everybody on my friends list, but just in general, I didn't like the way that it sounded. I mean, at first it sounded pretty cool, but then I got to the idea that it sounded very egotistical. It sounded like I was being very cocky and that I was trying to be controlling in some way, shape, or form. Not that I'm always not trying to be controlling, but that's not the point. Today, I'm going to do a retrospective, or at least I hope that I do a good retrospective. And my retrospective will be, I think, on one of my favorite Marvel Comics characters. And that character is none other than Mr. Anthony Stark, a.k.a. Tony Stark, or, as he's known in the superhero community, as Iron Man. Now, Iron Man debuted in Tales of Suspense 39. This was around the time of the Vietnam War and right around when the Cold War was starting to begin. A lot of technical ingenuities and everything else, and they needed somebody to create. And so Stan Lee came up with the idea of, hey, I'll build this, wealthy, socialite billionaire who is going over to test, weapons. And if something happens, now here's where the comic book and the Robert Downey Jr. movie kind of blur the line. They're almost the same, but they're different. In the comics, Tony Stark stepped on a shrapnel charge. In the movie, it's kind of like a shrapnel missile kind of deal. But that's not really, to be honest, all that important. The main point is that, he's hit in the chest, his heart is damaged, and of course, like in the movie, the terrorists or the Viet Cong ask him, to build him a weapon. He's gonna die within a week, and so what he does is that he builds. Like, it's kind of hard to show it. Which, by the way, not to plug this, but if you find the Marvel Comics Essentials here, these things are only about $20-25. Really great. I recommend it to anybody who's a comic book fan. There is a drawback. While you do get a lot of comics, they are, of course, printed in black and white. But other than that, I do recommend them if you want to start, like, your own comic book collection, or even, just as a collector's item. These are definitely very good. And because they're black and white, I'll describe it to you. His original suit of to describe it to you, his original suit of armor was gray, which, of course, the movie version is a lot better than the comic book version in the fact that it's more realistic, and it's actually how the suit probably should have looked in the comics, being built out of scrap metal. And that one is also realistic in the fact that it didn't fly very long, whereas in the comics he could just fly around. And instead of changing to the Mark II armor, which you see when he first flies in the movie, he actually used it as a suit for a while there, but it eventually started to scare people. And so he was trying to find a way, because apparently they thought that he was like an animatronic monster of sorts. Like, it really kind of disheartened the public. And so what he did is that he found, this, golden honey syrup kind of paint. Like chrome paint. And he sprayed that over the whole entire suit, and it was less scary. It was actually, he was, in a sense, as most people christened him, a golden knight in shining armor. Well, eventually it started to get to the point to where the gold outfit, the gold suit, was starting to become a little bit too heavy. It was way too clunky for Stark to carry around. And so he eventually built the very first incarnation, as you can see, of course, on the cover of the Marvel Comics Essential that I showed. That is the very first, or or matter of fact, I believe the second incarnation of the red and yellow suit that he's known to wear. And it was more lightweight. He was able to carry it around. It was very collapsible. He could easily, almost like an air balloon. He could like inflate and deflate it. Like it was very collapsible as far as like the mechanisms within him. And of course from there, he went on, to have other suits. The Hulkbuster, the War Machine, which sorry about that. I didn't mean to say Iron Wars. I meant to say Armor Wars. I'm sure it probably sounded like Iron, but I meant to say. But in case I did say Iron Wars and somebody catches it on the video, that's a good little blooper. I meant to say Armor Wars. And the Armor Wars was when Tony Stark, all of his technology, or rather more specifically, his Iron Man tech was being used and stolen. And at first, Tony Stark thought, that it was Justin Hammer. Turns out it wasn't Justin Hammer. Excuse me. It was Obadiah Stane. And Obadiah Stane, which, of course, if you've seen in the Robert Downey Jr. movie, making another reference to the movie, you'll see that he uses that tech to make the Ironmonger suit. Now, this also, of course, debuts his West Coast Avengers outfit, which is the silver and red outfit. Or the Silver Centaurian, as it's been called. It's the debut of that. To be honest, the original look of Ironmonger, it looked exactly like Iron Man, which, of course, go figure. It was Iron Man stolen tech, but there was, of course, that storyline. He's been involved in the Marvel Civil War storyline, where he was the leader of the pro-registration, team. And he fought against Captain America and everything. He's also been the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. when Nick Fury was removed as the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Tony Stark replaced him. And here recently, Tony Stark, because of the Secret Invasion storyline, the government blamed Stark for not being on top of the Skrull invasion. And so they booted him out. They, in a sense, forcefully removed him as director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and put Norman Osborn, that's right, the frickin' Green Goblin, as the director of, the most, government-controlled, superpower, as I like to call it. Because that's what S.H.I.E.L.D. is. It's run by the UN. They're under the command of the UN. They're, the biggest strategic